Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Moving the Goalposts Leftovers. I'm Nick DiMartino. Let everybody roll in. And we got a lot to get to. Obviously, a lot of college football, some NFL previews. Molly Karam leaves First Take in some sports media news, and I'll talk a little bit about the Mets too, probably. Um, first, first, we this this Moving the Goalposts Leftovers is powered by Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market, available right now in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and New York. On Novig, you're 10 times more likely to win long term compared to a traditional sports book because you're playing against real users, not the house. Sign up today and use promo code ETB Network for exclusive bonuses. All right. So, uh, welcome. And here's another edition of Leftovers. And we got to start off with some college football recaps. A whole lot of hype going around, a whole lot of, I'll get a little bit, talk a little bit about Oklahoma Auburn and also maybe a little bit about Clemson losing. And of course, we're going to get into another edition of the comment section later on in the show. So, first, Oklahoma Auburn. Oklahoma, what if you want another edition of bad beats? This is really, in my case, a really good an edition of good beats because I had Oklahoma minus the 6.5, and we ended up winning. I ended up winning on a safety at the very end of that game with Oklahoma up 22-17 with 3 straight sacks on Jackson Darnold. On Jackson Arnold. I'm sorry, I'm used to saying Darnold. I'm a Jet fan. And I mean, yeah, that's a bad beat if you had Auburn. But if you're like me, it's also a good beat. That's a pretty that's a pretty bad beat if you had Auburn plus the 6.5. Oklahoma won that game, not without help from the refs. That's the big story right now. Oklahoma, everybody's talking about the refs with Oklahoma and Auburn. The first and it's pretty significant. It could be pretty significant. Like it really could have. There were a few really there were 2 really crucial calls that went against Auburn, and where Auburn just got totally screwed, and Auburn maybe could have won the game. I don't think they would have won the game regardless, but you never know. They could have. I can't really say that with any real certainty. That's just my opinion. So one of those plays was the first touchdown Oklahoma scored in the second quarter. Isaiah Sategna scored a touchdown where a penalty should have clearly been called. I have a video. Here's the announcers talking about it. Here's the announcers talking about it after the. Here it is.
Off the field from the previous play. They decide as soon as he walks off to try to snap it, catch him off guard. Auburn never sees him.
Well, let's bring in Matt Austin. Matt, tell us about that situation.
Yeah, I wish I could see the player all the way to the sideline, but I can't. But you cannot use the substitution process to deceive your opponent. If that's what they were trying to do, that's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It should be 15 yards and no touchdown.
Perhaps that's what Hugh Freeze was screaming at Jeff Heezer about. And I guess that's tough to tell, right? Perhaps, hey, Sategna, we want you to stay back.
All right. So clearly that should have been called a penalty. I don't think there's any debate about that should have been called a penalty. That Isaiah Sategna clearly, or Oklahoma, whoever had the idea, they clearly were trying to deceive Auburn's defense. I mean, it's the most obvious thing in the world. I just showed you the video. It's not even like he ran at full speed to the sideline and then lined up. He was clearly making it look like he was trying to run off the field. And the refs, I think their response was, hey, he never actually left the field technically. I mean, as if they don't even know the rule. The rule is pretty clear. You're not allowed to deceive the defense. I'm not sure how it works in the NFL. That rule might not be a thing, but I do know that the rules were broken. You are not allowed, that they broke the rules. You are not allowed to do that. And that should have been called on Oklahoma. And that was pretty significant. It was second, I think it was 2nd and 22. It was 2nd and 22. So it would have been a 15-yard penalty, no touchdown, 3rd and 37. I mean, that would have been a pretty big deal. They wouldn't even have been in field goal range. Maybe in the best case scenario, I mean, the most likely scenario maybe is they settle for a field goal in that case. But that definitely wipes the touchdown off the board. And instead of getting the touchdown, it's 3rd and 37. I mean, that changes the trajectory of the game. Like, that's a pretty big difference in the game. And overall, I would say, like, Oklahoma, like, this game was close. This game was closer than I thought it would be. Jackson Arnold played a bit better than I thought he would. Auburn played better than I thought. I don't know if it says more about Oklahoma or if it says more about Auburn. I don't really know yet. None of us really do. It's still early in the season. But the SEC is really just a hell of a conference this year. I mean, like, we don't know what to think about any of these teams. I mean, I guess it's like this weird new era of college football. Like, but the SEC is to me, it almost seems like the most interesting conference in college football. Like, I don't even just mean the best. Like the SEC for most of my lifetime was clearly the best conference in college football, but it wasn't necessarily the most interesting. Like, you knew who the teams were. You knew who the best teams were. You kind of had a good idea of who was going to win every year. You had a good idea of who was going to beat who. Of course, you had some crazy upsets. But, for many years, Alabama was at the top, then Georgia was at the top. For one year, LSU was at the top. And that's just kind of how the SEC was. This year, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, Oklahoma looks like Auburn is like a middle-of-the-road SEC team, and they competed with Oklahoma pretty well at Oklahoma, and if not for a couple of help, and if not for some help from the refs, could have won that game. And Auburn looks really good so far, I think. I mean, this year's Auburn team might be the best Auburn team we've seen in the past 8 years. Possibly. I'm not saying definitely. I mean, look, I think college football is better when teams like Auburn are better. I would like to see an Auburn be able to compete. This might be the best team. Maybe, probably not the past 8 years, fine. Maybe 6 years of 2019 Bo Nix team. Maybe I'll give you that one. But the bottom line is, it looks like it's the best Auburn team in more than 5 years since Gus Malzahn. I mean, they were terrible under Brian Harsin. They've had a losing record every year Brian Harsin was Auburn's head coach. And so, since 2020, Auburn's had a losing record all 4 of those years, 4 years in a row. I think this looks like it could be the best team it might be the best team since Bo Nix, possibly even Jarrett Stidham, when Jarrett Stidham was Auburn's quarterback. And yeah, like that's just what the SEC looks like this year. But like I said, that's not the only thing that happened in that game that really could have changed the whole trajectory of the game. This other play might actually have been more consequential. So they got away with, Oklahoma also got away with, in the fourth quarter, an obvious pass interference call. It would have, again, changed the whole trajectory of the game. Here it is. Let me just share this with you. Here it is. Here's the pass interference call that they blatantly got away with.
At this time,
need a snap. Play clock at 1. That's going to be a double pass toward the end zone and incomplete.
Man, it looked like for a moment there was going to be a pass interference at the end of this. It looked like you'll see quickly he'll drop back, and then there's a deep ball going this direction. It's well executed. The throw hangs too long, but as the receiver is wide open, look at the close. It looks like contact was pretty close. Right there, there's the contact. That's got to be pass interference, and a big at this time.
Need a snap.
That is such an obvious pass interference call. I don't know how you missed that. That is unbelievable. That gives Auburn an automatic. That would have given Auburn an automatic first down. It's 3rd and 11 in the 3rd and 11. So that would have. I understand it's not spotted the foul in college football, the pass interference, but still, that's crazy. I don't know. And the ref missed it because he turned his back. I mean, what the hell is going on over there? I mean, the officiating in this game was just so bad, and there's at least 2 crucial calls there. that went clearly in Oklahoma's favor. The officiating was just terrible. And by the way, for everybody talking about the Satania fumble that happened when they said it wasn't a complete pass, don't use that. All right, that there was nothing. Don't complain about that. That was clearly the right call. When Satania, when they originally ruled it a fumble, Auburn ran it back for a touchdown. They reviewed it, and then they ruled that Satania never had possession. That was the right call. Satania never had possession. That was so obvious. I'm surprised there's even any debate about that. Clearly, I think he didn't have possession. In the NFL, would they ever call that would they ever rule that a catch? There's no way. There's no way they wouldn't have ruled that a catch. But those two, I mean, normally I'm not one to blame the refs for everything. Maybe Oklahoma wins that game regardless. There's a good chance that's true. So I'm not one to blame the refs. Like, the refs are not the reason that Auburn, that there was a bad snap on 4th down, and then when they were punting, and then Oklahoma got the ball back in their own territory. That was before the Satania got away with what should have been called what should have been a 15-yard penalty. So I'm not blaming the refs for that, but I mean, come on. Those were two really crucial plays, especially at the end of the game. I mean, the ref doesn't see it because he turns his back. I don't know what the hell's going on. It ended up being good for me, but give me a break. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, the officiating was so unbelievably bad. Some more college football. Some more college football. I mean, by the way, Friday night, Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa. What the hell is going on in Oklahoma? Oh my God. Oklahoma State is just terrible. And same with UNC. They just got killed by UCF. I was kind of like, even though I'm a Jet fan and I'm naturally supposed to hate Bill Belichick, I was rooting for Belichick a little bit. Like, I don't know. I thought it would be kind of a fun, cool story if Bill Belichick has a little bit of a comeback. Like, he's the greatest, arguably, NFL head coach ever. He kind of fades into oblivion. He basically got fired from the Patriots, going to get an NFL job. I don't know. I thought it'd be kind of cool if he were to, make a little bit of a turnaround at UNC. But it looks like it's not even just that they lost. They lost 34-9. Like, I don't know. Another big game was Clemson losing to Syracuse. Yeah, this is a disaster for Clemson. Usually teams give you some type of reason to, like a team like Notre Dame, for instance. A lot of times they lose a game and then they give you some type of reason to think that they stink, and then the next week they give you the opposite. I mean, Clemson is now 1-3. I don't know if I've ever seen a Clemson team. I think this is the worst Clemson team since the worst start that Clemson's had since 2004. I think I saw that. I mean, which I wasn't watching college football in 2004. So basically almost my entire lifetime, this is the worst that Clemson's ever started. And by the way, Cade Klubnik, they threw the ball a lot. I mean, Cade Klubnik Cade Klubnik had really good numbers. I mean, he went 30. I mean, they threw the ball 60 times with him. He went 37 for 60 with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. I mean, those numbers really aren't all that bad. I mean, like, I kind of feel like if your quarterback puts up numbers like that, you have a lot of problems elsewhere. I mean, sure, the completion percentage could be a little better, but he really didn't play all that bad. And the thing with Clemson is that it's just over for them. It's just over. And the crazy thing about Clemson is that their best win, the best Clemson has looked so far was their loss to LSU. That's the best they've looked, was their loss to LSU. Like, I'm looking at LSU now and I'm looking at Clemson and I'm like, I can't believe Clemson ended up almost winning that game. That's what it feels like when I look at Clemson. And they looked they ended up winning beating Troy, but that they also dug themselves in a 16-0 hole. They needed to come back from 16-0 to beat Troy. And then they haven't looked good. They haven't looked good at all since. They couldn't beat Georgia Tech. They couldn't beat Syracuse. Luckily, they have North Carolina, so I guess you could count that as a win. You could pencil that in as and Boston College. You can pencil those two in as wins. But Clemson's season now is effectively over. I mean, I don't see how Clemson, under any circumstances, ends up making the playoffs. I don't see how it happens. And by the way, if you were to look at any contender, and see and have their season be over by week 4, I mean, Clemson was the last team. Like, I could see a team like that's in the SEC or the Big Ten that plays like this gauntlet of a schedule. But it's like, if you were to look at all of Clemson's games, if you were to look at all of Clemson's matchups this year, for this season, you'd be looking at like Florida State, you'll be looking at South Carolina. Nobody would have been like, yeah, you got to watch out for Georgia Tech. You got to watch out for Syracuse. I mean, like, these are games. I mean, Syracuse at home, you couldn't beat Syracuse at home, coming off a tough loss like that. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem for Clemson. Clemson in the NIL era has just not been the same. They really just haven't been the same. And they never really recovered from it, it seems like. They've just never been the same. And, the ACC, it says something when your playoff hopes are over by week 4, especially when you play in the ACC. I mean, last year, Clemson didn't have a great year, but they still managed to win the ACC. They were good enough to win the ACC. Miami, they ended up missing the playoffs because they lost to Syracuse towards the end of the year, but they lost to Syracuse like towards the end of the year. Like, they had hope throughout the entire season. I mean, Clemson, they lost to Syracuse at home week 4. And that's not even why the season's over. It's because they lost to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. I guess it's the same thing Miami did. They lost to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. But for Miami, it at least happened at the end of the season. So they had hope for the whole season. And so Miami fans at least had some hope. Now in the ACC, the two-way race is going to be between Miami and Florida State. And it's certainly possible now that the ACC only gets one playoff team. So basically, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you should be happy, because what happened with Clemson is good for Notre Dame. And by the way, San Diego State just blowing out Cal. That's pretty unbelievable. Yeah, so that's really oh yeah, and by the way, Miami beating Florida, that's a tough one for me. I mean, look, I had Florida plus the points, because the weird thing that Florida does is that a lot of times they make themselves and their opponents look bad, kind of like they did against LSU. I mean, sure, they ended up losing 20-10 against LSU, but they were LSU's offense didn't look great. Their offense looked kind of stagnant. So in a weird way, they made LSU look not so good, even though they ended up losing 20-10. And you know what? The spread, Miami was only winning 13-7 in the fourth quarter. And then Miami scores 2 touchdowns to run up the score to win 26-7. I mean, the problem with Florida is that their offense is just terrible. DJ Lagway totally sucks. I mean, DJ Lagway threw for 61 yards. I mean, at least he didn't throw 5 interceptions. I mean, he barely completed more than 50% of his passes. I mean, DJ Lagway is just terrible. I mean, the problem with Florida is that they just have a really, really bad offense. And in fairness, Miami has a pretty good defense. But I really thought that, and I wasn't totally wrong. I wasn't totally wrong that I thought Florida would really show up for this game. And they kind of did, because they kind of were able to keep it close until the end, when Miami scored 2 unanswered touchdowns, and that just blew the spread out of the water. That killed me. That one really killed me. As good as the winning on a safety in the Oklahoma-Auburn game was, that one just killed me, because I thought Florida should have at least been in it. All right, so let's go to another edition of the comments section, where I read comments from usually TikTok, because that's where I get the most comments. So here's here's the clip from last week's show where I talk about Notre Dame, and somebody comments. So I said I was talking about Notre Dame's playoff hopes, and it got the clip went pretty viral. I don't know about viral, but it feels like it went viral because we got a lot of comments. So somebody comments, if Indiana wins tomorrow, this was on Friday, there will be 4 Big Ten teams at minimum. Luckily for Notre Dame, the NCAA won't let them miss the playoff at 10-2, even if they don't get a ranked win. I can already see the propaganda now. Okay. First of all, those two comments those two statements kind of contradict themselves a little bit to say if Indiana wins, there'll be at least 4 Big Ten teams minimum. And then say Notre Dame the NCAA won't let Notre Dame miss the playoff. I mean, yeah, that's probably not the case. Like it's basically mathematically impossible or almost mathematically impossible for both of those things to happen. I mean, okay, so you get 4 SEC teams, 4 ACC teams, that's 8, plus Notre Dame, that's 9. ACC, that's 10, 11, and Big 12, 12, that large. But okay, so it's technically possible, but it's kind of unlikely because the ACC would only get 1 team, and the Big 12 will probably only get 1 team, and the SEC will only have to get 4 teams. So it could happen, but it's unlikely. As far as that comment about the NCAA not letting them miss the tournament, that is just goofy. And I can't say that it's a guarantee that that the Big Ten gets at least 4 teams in. That's really no guarantee at all. I mean, it could happen, but it's no guarantee. I mean, I would say that Notre Dame and USC will both not get in. I think that's safe to say. That only one or the other, the winner of that game, will get in, and it's probably Notre Dame. I'm sure they're probably favored. So, somebody else comments, the new method is scheduling hard at the start of the season while starting ranked and playing FCS the rest of the season. I guess that's I would not say that's I wouldn't say that's totally true. I guess I wouldn't say that's new when it comes to Notre Dame, but you also have to remember, you don't always know how good, you also have to remember this. You don't know how good any team is going to be when you schedule these games. These games are scheduled years in advance, and nobody really knows for sure how good any of them are going to be, in fairness. I mean, look, it's kind of hard to predict. I mean, sure, it's a good guess that Alabama is going to be a tough matchup no matter when you schedule them. But, you never know with USC. If they're good. USC's had a lot of up and down years. Texas A&M's had a lot of up and down years. You don't even know how good Texas A&M's going to be going into the season, let alone years in advance. So the thing with Notre Dame is that it kind of worked out that way this year for them, but really that's not totally how it works because you don't really, these games are scheduled years in advance. You don't really know. I mean, the thing with Notre Dame is that they just don't play that many. They don't play very strong schedules, and a lot of times, other teams are not going to be playing. A lot of teams that are not in the ACC aren't going to want to play Notre Dame outside of early in the season because those are non-conference games. So the tough non-conference games are always. Here's the thing with Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays an ACC schedule. That's effectively what they do. They play an ACC schedule without the commitment, without playing when I say they play an ACC schedule, they don't play exactly an ACC schedule, but they play an ACC schedule level difficulty. And Notre Dame this year, I mean, they played Miami. Miami's an ACC team, but Texas A&M, they're an SEC team. To Texas A&M, this is just a regular non-conference game for Texas A&M. It's not the same with ACC teams. And I wouldn't say that's entirely true. I mean, Arkansas Arkansas is no slouch. And USC is no slouch either. And Pitt, you never know. And Syracuse, I mean, Syracuse just beat Clemson. So you never really know going into these seasons. Like when Notre Dame's schedule, the thing with Notre Dame is that, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, is that Notre Dame doesn't really play a tough schedule ever anyway. So that's just kind of how it works. Now, I wouldn't say that's totally new. I mean, the SEC, a lot of SEC teams are playing schools I've otherwise never even heard of, like the weekend after Thanksgiving. But I wouldn't say it's that new. Um, Somebody says only team in the country goes 0-2 and still talking about we still got a great shot at the playoffs. The only 2 tests on their schedule were losses. Um, okay, yes, that's true. I think some people in this comment section forget that it's a 12-team playoff and there's going to be 12 teams getting in. I wouldn't say they're the only test. USC is a bit of a test going on the road to play, even going on the road to play Arkansas. They're not going to get much credit for it, but even that's a little bit of a test. I would say the only test left on their true test left on their schedule most likely is USC. Maybe Pitt, maybe. But I would say USC is really the only team that is likely even going to be ranked by the time that they play them. Now, somebody says only Notre Dame fans babble like this. I mean, I'm not a Notre Dame fan. Johnny is a Notre Dame fan. I'm not a Notre Dame fan at all. I've never rooted for Notre Dame unless I had money on them. I'm not in any way a Notre Dame fan. Talking playoffs at 0-2 is wild delusions. And then somebody else comments, is anyone seriously confident they can win 10 in a row when they couldn't win 2? Yes. I mean, yeah. They're favorites by at least a touchdown in all the rest of their games. I mean, they basically did the same thing last year, too. I think they lost to Northern Illinois in week 3, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it was the week after they beat Texas A&M. So I think they won, 9 in a row or maybe 10 in a row? It's something like that. Talking playoffs at 0-2 is wild delusions. No, it's not. I wouldn't say it is. I mean, look, I say in the clip, Notre Dame, there's a really good chance at 10-2, Notre Dame doesn't get in. All I'm saying now is that Notre Dame's playoff hopes are not completely over. That's all I'm saying. And to say that they're completely over, I think is just wrong. They don't control their own destiny. But their playoff hopes are not over. And let's not forget, they lost to Miami and Texas A&M. There's a good chance Miami wins the ACC. Texas A&M probably doesn't win the SEC, but I think the A&M loss hurt them a bit more. But Texas A&M, look, these are 2 good teams that they lost to by a combined 4 points. And if not for a really bad missed holding call that the refs missed terribly, Notre Dame probably beats Texas A&M. And we're having a totally different conversation. So I don't think it's totally crazy to say that their playoff hopes are over. Don't forget, 12 teams get in. 12 teams get in. So don't forget that. And so I don't think it's that crazy to say they can't. So somebody else comments, yes, they play tomato cans from here on out. Yes, that's true. Then somebody else comments they will lose to Arkansas and USC. It's unlikely they lose both those games. Could happen, but I doubt it. But no, bottom line is it's not crazy. It's not crazy, but they don't control their own destiny. And here's the thing. Sometimes I think that people have short-term memory when it comes to college football. I think some people often have short-term memory, which is that, like, people think that Notre Dame is the only team that's gonna lose games or that's gonna step in a landmine against an inferior opponent. I mean, they're not the only team going to lose these kinds of games. And a lot of it really depends on the SEC, especially since Texas A&M is an SEC team. I think it depends a lot more on the SEC than on the ACC. It depends a lot more on the SEC than the ACC. Because Miami is probably going to be in the ACC championship game anyway. I find it a little hard to believe if that. I think that's probably going to happen. But it's going to depend a lot on the SEC, because they lost to Texas A&M, who is an SEC team. They didn't lose to a Big Ten team, so I think it's going to depend more on what happens in the SEC. And the SEC right now is wide open. The thing is that SEC teams beat up on each other a lot. And that could end up helping Notre Dame. The problem is that if you get a bunch of 10-2 SEC teams and a 10-2 Notre Dame team, it's going to be Notre Dame's not going to have much of a case against these 10-2 SEC teams. Every SEC team is going to have better wins. Any hypothetical 10-2 SEC team is probably going to be getting in over a 10-2 Notre Dame team, especially Texas A&M. Because every single one of those SEC teams plays a tougher schedule than Notre Dame. Its strength of schedule matters a lot. And Notre Dame does not have that going for them. But look, 12 teams get in. And a whole lot of teams are going to be losing games that they should win. So in all sorts of hypothetical scenarios, it's not totally crazy that Notre Dame can get in. Even with 4 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC teams. And by the way, the 4 Big Ten teams sounds like a little bit of a stretch because Indiana has to go on the road and play Oregon and Penn State. And those are likely losses for Indiana. And by the way, if you want to talk about strength of schedule or strength of wins, what does Indiana have outside of a win against Illinois? So the same argument could be said about Indiana. If Indiana loses to Penn State and Oregon, who would be their main 2 tests, I mean, let's say for the sake of argument, Notre Dame has a win against USC. Indiana has a win against Illinois. There's a really good chance USC is a ranked team and Illinois is not. And Notre Dame's best win against USC is better than Indiana's best win against Illinois. That's certainly possible. It also depends on how they lose to Penn State and Oregon, depending on assuming they lose those games, which they most likely will. So, that has to be taken into account also. If Indiana loses both those games the way they lost to Ohio State last year, the way they lost to Ohio State and Tennessee last year, the only 2 tests on there, Tennessee was in the playoffs, but the way they lost to Ohio State, I don't know if Indiana's getting in. I don't know. No, and people would sit there and blame the committee for bias and all that, but I don't think it would be that crazy because, look, Notre Dame lost to Miami and they lost to A&M. All right, they're not like Clemson that lost to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. It's not like that. So I think it's not crazy that Notre Dame can at least get in. Then somebody says, yeah, that's it. Yeah, then somebody else comments, they are fine. Look, I wouldn't say they're fine. I'm just saying, they still got a shot. That's really just all I said. All right, so some more topics. Molly Qerim is leaving First Take. She left abruptly. I think it was last Wednesday, there were apparently contract negotiations going on between her and ESPN. Here's Stephen A. Smith. Here's Stephen A. Smith responding to it. Here it is. Hold on. Here it is.
She abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a coworker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately. As you see from her Instagram post.
All right. So basically, it's kind of obvious. He said, I'm not going to tell you, but it's kind of obvious that it was because of contract negotiations. And that's why she's not coming back to the show. Yeah, look, I kind of figured that was probably why. I didn't think she just got up and walked out because she was angry. Yeah, it was probably because of contract negotiations. And I guess unlike professional athletes with TV hosts like this, we don't know about those contract negotiations. So it kind of hits us a little. It kind of like we tend to be a bit more taken aback by it because we don't expect this. Um, I guess the interesting thing for Molly Karam is where's she going to go next? Like, what's her next move going to be? That's the interesting thing to me. I mean, will she even stay in sports? She might go. She might go be a host somewhere else. Maybe she'll go like the Joy Taylor route and do a podcast. I mean, she could probably do that and make a lot and make a good amount of money off of it. I mean, she definitely has a lot of options, even if she's not there at first take. And look, that's the only. I mean, he flat out said it. He said, "I'm not going to tell you," but it's kind of obvious that it was kind of odd. I kind of figure. I think that's what everybody figured happened. It was likely just contract negotiations, and that's why she left. But in terms of what she does next, that's really what's interesting to me. I think that she could do a podcast. She could do all sorts of things. She doesn't even have to do sports. She could be a host anywhere, really. She's a big enough name. So yeah, I guess good for her. I was just kind of surprised it happened at this time. Like it's kind of like sports is really busy right now, and I'm just kind of surprised that it happened now. That happened at this time. In terms of who the next host is going to be, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, you can kind of. I think that show would probably work with any host or any good host, any competent host. Uh, so I think First Take is going to be fine. But yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of surprised that. I think we all were. I think we were all kind of surprised. Um, and all right, so in the NFL, today's it's NFL Sunday. By the time a lot of you watch this, it's gonna be after the game. So, you know, I really I took the Bills for Thursday night because I gave up on the Dolphins. I guess that's the time you take the team is when you're done with them. Every time I bet on every single one of my Dolphins picks has been wrong. I feel really stupid every single time. Uh, Here are some picks though that I have. I like. I love the Bucks -6.5. The Jets are a disaster. Tyrod Taylor is starting. I guess that's not such a bad thing, but like I said on the podcast, I think that the problem with the Jets is that they have no receiving core outside of Garrett Wilson. I mean, it doesn't matter who their quarterback is; they have no targets. Uh, and the Jets are just a disaster. Maybe the same things that happen with the Dolphins when you're done with a team. Like I'm done with them. Uh, that's the time to pick them. But yeah, this is not good for the Jets. I love the Titans. I really like the Titans plus the 3.5. I think this is a little bit of a trap. I think Vegas seems to be begging you to take the Colts. Look, the Colts just won 2 games against teams that are not good, both at home. They're going on the road. The Titans, they didn't look all that bad against Denver. I think the Colts are gonna struggle. I really think they're gonna struggle a little bit. I think Daniel Jones is gonna come back down to earth. I'm going with Titans plus the 3.5. Um, I like I actually like the Rams plus 3.5 against the Eagles. I like the Rams. I really like the Steelers -1.5 at the Patriots. Um, and I really love Dallas against Chicago. I think Dallas is going to win by a lot. And I like the over. The over is like something, it's really low. The over is only like 50. With both of these teams' defenses, this game's going to be a shootout. I love the over. I love the over and the Cowboys. The problem with Caleb Williams is that he just can't play 60 minutes of football. That's the problem. Like the Bears, they look good at times, but they can't play a whole game. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem. I like the Chiefs -5.5 against the Giants, and I actually like the Lions. In my pick 'em, I took them plus 5.5. The line might be a little lower now, but what I really like in the Lions Ravens game is the over. That's an over game. I really like the over, and I also like the Packers -8.5, and I like Houston. Plus 0.5 point. I don't know what it is now exactly against the Jaguars. The Texans, like the Chiefs, they're 0-2. I think they're kind of desperate. I don't think the Texans are that good, but I like them to be able to look. They dug themselves in a hole. I think that they feel like they have a lot to prove. I like Houston to be able to beat Jacksonville. And yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's about it. Uh, and yeah, and oh yeah, by the way, love the Chargers against Denver. Love the Chargers. I don't think that I think Denver is a very overrated team. I always thought they were overhyped going into the season. I just didn't get it with Denver. I think they're so overrated. I think they're a mediocre team. They're 8-9, 9-8. They're an 8 to 9 win team this year. That's really all they are. And by the way, I don't know if any of you saw that Met game, and I saw that second inning for the Mets. I mean, was just a disaster between the Juan Soto era and Nolan McLean missing the base. They initially called him out, but then with instant replay, they saw that he missed first base. That was such a disaster for the Mets. I mean, I'm really worried with the Mets I'm really worried about the Mets right now. I mean, I understand we're still hanging on by a thread in the wild card. The Mets right now only have a 1-game lead over the Reds. Only a 1-game lead. Luckily, the Reds are playing the Cubs. Hopefully, the Cubs can take care of them. The Cubs are at least favored. And look, the Cubs' schedule is no walk in the park because after they play the Pirates, they have to play against the Brewers. But look, the Mets have to play 3 games against the Cubs, and then it's the Marlins, so it's not so bad after that. But I am really worried about how the season's going to end. I am just look. If the Mets make the playoffs, the good news is that they have no pressure, and the Mets tend to be a pretty good team on when they have no pressure. But when the pressure is on, they choke a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just and as for the Jets, I mean, just like I said, forget about it. Forget about it with the Jets. But I'm all in on the Mets. That's the team I'm really worried about. I've already given up on the Jets. But I mean, look, we just lost to the Nationals in 11 innings. That's rough. That's really rough. All right, so I'll see you guys on Wednesday.